What is scary about empty places? I've played horror video games before, such as Resident Evil and Silent Hill, and these games usually derive fear from the existence of some kind of threat. Zombies, monsters, or any kind of beings that exist within the game's world to compromise your physical safety. But how can a game with nothing to fear still call itself a horror game? Can a game really be scary purely by virtue of its environmental aesthetic? That is the aim of games produced to replicate the fairly recently popularized creepy phenomenon known as liminal space. Liminal spaces are defined as feeling like transitional areas between one state of existence and another, empty but familiar kinds of places with an unusual or unsettling appearance. They are a type of place we might be used to normally seeing with more activity, but presented as surreally devoid of life. While this kind of aesthetic has been used for creepiness for a long time, notably with the hallways and rooms of the Overlook Hotel in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, it has recently seen a lot of popularity in internet culture. This appears to have started with a 2019 4chan post on their paranormal forum, where this image was shared with the text, "Post disquieting images that just feel off." When the original poster was asked to explain the image, they replied, "If you're not careful and you no-clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the backrooms, where it's nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum hum buzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it sure as hell has heard you." And thus, the legend of the Backrooms was born, and the liminal space aesthetic rapidly became incredibly popular on social media. I find this new phenomenon intriguing, mainly for the fact that I don't quite understand it. I look at the pictures, and while I appreciate the photographic artistry of capturing these shots, which bring back those odd feelings like being in a school long after everyone has gone home, or being in an empty train station, I don't really understand why it would be frightening or even creepy or unnerving as some people seem to suggest. Maybe I don't have the imagination to put myself there in the picture like others can. So maybe if I play some of the many games based on this recent trend, I can fully understand why these odd kind of environments can be something to fear. If I can immerse myself in the world of this aesthetic, perhaps I can understand. Maybe I can feel what is meant by liminal space horror. I found what I thought to be the most well-recommended examples of the genre to try out. If I missed something you think is better, write it in the comments and I'll be happy to give it a look. I thought I should start with where the trend started, so I searched my way through the glut of Backrooms-themed games to find one which didn't have any entity jumpscare deaths or the even worse horror of co-op multiplayer. I settled on the complex found footage, which promised to be an atmospheric backrooms walking simulator for me to ease myself gently into liminal space gaming. I had mostly expected to casually stroll through and reflect on the intriguing aesthetic, but it was a genuinely frightening experience. The framing of it as a VHS video camera recording with grainy distorted visuals and dull humming audio which left you never really knowing whether you were hearing your own footsteps or something else, leaves you feeling disorientated and nauseated. The environment, although oddly sparse and bland looking, somehow feels incredibly menacing and oppressive. And also with the bizarre, uncomfortable weirdness of turning corners to find disused retail units or strangely clean swimming pool areas. Although, save for a few blink and you'll miss it glimpses of an entity and odd sounds, there's really nothing much to suggest your safety is at risk, but yet I was on the edge of my seat at all times. I went into this knowing there was no threat, but still felt so tense and fearful I can only imagine how a player without this knowledge would have felt. To some fans of horror video games, this might be seen as a disappointment, but for me, the developer deserves credit for not adding any kind of danger or cheap jump scare to this experience, as it may have made me exit my bowels. With its dark atmosphere and remarkably effective sound design, the complex found footage pleasantly surprised me with how deeply unpleasant the experience was. This short but superbly designed game has already given me a lasting impression of how terrifying liminal space horror can get, and I still have more games to see. This next game annoyed me straight away because I was going to do a hilarious bit here where I fumble on the pronunciation of the title, but then the game's protagonist does it for me.
Anemoiapolis? Anemoiapolis. Anemoiapolis. I think that's it.
Yes, very good. Anemoiapolis is a game where after investigating a rural electrical transformer you unwittingly fall through to a swimming pool which is part of a strange, hidden, empty retail and leisure facility. The game shows some promise of interesting puzzle elements, but save for a few environmental challenges and insultingly simple circuit board problems, it never really delivers on that promise. The central hub has you entering different stages through elevators which you can earn access to by collecting amusement arcade-style tickets you find. The first of these stages, the conference centre, was an incredibly dull labyrinth of office space areas. With eye-bleedingly bright and irritatingly loud humming lighting, it was just frustrating to get through and not at all scary. Then the country club, featuring mini-golf games, which I quickly realised I didn't care for, but I also needed to collect some tickets from this area. I thought something might happen after hole 18, but it just kept going. Then I thought something might happen if I completed one of these holes. Nope. I took the exit and noticed that hiding down the lobby was the tickets I needed all along, making the whole stage feel pointless. The only fear I had from this game so far was that I might have exceeded the amount of time played to be eligible for a Steam refund. But I pushed on, and the next stage, the movie theatre, was where things finally started to feel quite creepy. The long, dimly lit and repetitiously carpeted and decorated hallways felt threateningly foreboding, and the screens were showing a deeply uncomfortable blend of uncanny AI-looking imagery and old public service films. Then onto the family tropical resort for more swimming pools, which after only playing 2 liminal space games already feels like an overused setting. In the dark and disorientating locker rooms, the fear ramps up again as the protagonist thinks he's not alone. Although I didn't remember seeing anything, it certainly keeps up the tension throughout this maze of sinks, showers and shitters. Our guy then makes this stunning observation. As if everything up to this point has been totally normal. After a final short trip through a Backrooms maze, you can access the main elevator to the surface. But a mysterious lady in red subtitles sends you back down to find her friend and the game ends. While I do appreciate this game's efforts to have more of a narrative and a wider variety of different liminal spaces, Anemoiapolis just slightly fell short of the fear factor for me. Another game I tried out was, of course, Pools. A game with lots and lots and lots of swimming pools. And other things like saunas, toilet, a small town, a subway station and an art gallery, but mostly just swimming pools. In fairness, the environment is used very effectively in this title, with you having to traverse dark claustrophobic waterways to progress through the stages, whereas in the other games these areas had you barely even needing to get your feet wet. The psychological effect of being in this bizarre maze and having to spend so much time in water, which people are taught naturally to have a fear of, makes this quite an overtly tense experience. To add to that, there's some rather creepy set pieces dotted around for you as you move around. I never thought a rubber duck could get my heart racing, but put a giant one in a dark pool tunnel maze and that's what you get. Things take a much more bizarre turn later on, with gravity-bending passageways, crazy stairs, giant gurning marble statue heads and whatever the fuck this is. Far from a maddeningly mundane march through liminal space, this becomes a much more suitably surreal stomp. This game once again makes use of the found VHS footage, audio and visual aesthetic extremely well. The sound design especially, with unnervingly loud footsteps and the tense breathing sounds that can be heard from the protagonist throughout. And you can ride the water slides! Whee! This game has exactly the right blend of incredibly detailed and well-designed environments and the bleak, uncomfortable existential terror of exploring what feels like a cursed, horrifying place. Although I've only played a small number of these type of games, Pools feels like a perfect example of what a liminal space horror game should be. Despite the lack of any monsters that mean to do you harm, the very nature of the strange environment makes you feel sickeningly fearful of what might happen here, but with an overriding curiosity to keep moving. It very quickly becomes a gripping and engaging game experience, with the addictive urge to see what more surprises would come your way. I myself was very much surprised by my experience of playing liminal space horror games. I had thought that games without any threat to the player would have a much harder time being considered as genuine horror experiences, but these games have shown me that the most raw fears you have can be uncovered not by any monster or zombie or masked killer, but by simply triggering the deepest parts of the human psyche. By exposing our primal discomfort and anxiety of uncertainty, these games provoke us to subconsciously fill in the blanks and make us imagine a terror much worse than can be shown to us with pixels. Proof, if ever there was, that we have nothing to fear, but fear itself.